like it. Yeah. It's good
Oh, that's
stuff.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I go out and I introduce it.
What are you going to do though
Yeah.
when there's people like Phoenix Razors and stuff like that? You can't buy any more razor blades anymore. Eventually, I mean, have you ever
can
that
still get them. I mean, people still have those razor blades out there. But yeah, at some point, I'm thinking. At some point, I don't know. Maybe we're going to have some sort of digital electric razor thing for everyone. I mean, there's always those people that want to go old school. You can still go buy a straight razor, and a handle, and go all Sweeney Todd with your laser shave.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. At that point, I would have to find the last stock of them and go buy as many as I could and stock up so I could continue to do it. When I started to do research and development on putting that in the show, I even stopped and questioned that myself. I'm like, well, not everybody's shaving, all these razors now are cartridges and everything. I'm like, how many people are going to recognize this as a razor blade and know that it's dangerous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I demonstrate it, before I, start putting them in my mouth and everything. So people see that they're actually, working edged razors. And, but they do. Everybody knows. I mean, I was a little. I guess I was a little surprised, but that was part of the research when I started to develop the routine. Was are people still going to respond to a razor blade? And they do. They very much do.
Well, it's really funny. I have 8 children. Out of the 8, 6 are adult males, and for a long time I had a sponsor. Phoenix Shaving, and that's what they sell. They sell the old razor blades and razors. And, my son, and I got, samples, because they supplied me with my razors and my blades and the stuff. And one of my kids was looking at it, and he goes, "What is this?" I said, "This is a razor." And they look at the blade, and they said, "You shave with that?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Well, how can you shave with that?" I mean, he didn't even know what a razor blade was. I mean, that's how bad it was, let alone what an old razor was. I mean, wow, young people don't know.
Well, that was the other thing. Yeah, well, that's it, because I thought maybe they timed out because, I mean, we're in the digital information age now, and everything's a million miles an hour. It's like, and there's cartridges and shave clubs and all this stuff, and it's like, that was my thing. It's like, I was wondering if everybody was going to react like he did. And thankfully, they see it and they get it. I guess there's enough of it still out there, throughout pop culture and old movies and just, whatever is out there in the minutia that people do still get what a razor blade is. And that image is still used in a lot of dark culture and alternative culture and, and even, into biker culture and things like that. You still get, there's even, replicas of razors in jewelry and on T-shirts and things like that. So the image is still out there and a lot of people are familiar with it. But I had that same question. I was like, are people going to even know what the hell this is anymore? And they do.
Well, have you had, when you were doing the razor blade trick, I mean, did you have anybody screaming in the audience like, "Oh my God," and anybody passing out or anything weird like that happen?
Not as of yet. No, I've had people again kind of watching it, half watching it, and watching it through their fingers spread over their face. I've had women, bury their faces in their hands because they can't watch. I was doing a show in front of a metal band in a metal bar, and the giant 7-foot bouncer guy told me he couldn't watch me do that. So there, again, it's like what you were talking about earlier. It's very visceral. It's one of those things. It's like even the vampire's kiss. People hate needles. Anybody who's been to the doctor and been poked more than a few times, everybody hates needles. And that's part of what they carry into that. They already have that in their head. They have that experience that they've had with a needle. They didn't like it. So as they watch that, that's already playing. That rerun of whatever bad needle experience they had is already in their head playing in the background. So there is a huge psychological factor to a lot of those acts that have a danger element to them, things like that.
Now, have you introduced any new things into your act at all? New illusions since the last time we talked, or anything? Or
Oh yeah, I've been working a lot on a lot of new things for the show, because we want to, I'm still working to get Dark Realm out to a larger audience, and there's still things coming up on the horizon with that I can't go into right now, but there'll be new things to talk about there in a while. But as I do that, I want to get it to a larger audience, because I'm trying to develop more material so we can do a second one, and that's what we're talking about right now. And so I have been developing new material. I've got a great new, it's an illusion centered around a Ouija board. And I take out a Ouija board and I put it on this little wooden table, and it's and then I've got the planchette out there, and I move the planchette across, and then the planchette suddenly moves back a little bit on its own, and then I take it off of there, and I go in, and the table has a little cover on it, just a little tablecloth, and I get a hold of the tablecloth, and then I'm looking at the Ouija board, and then all of a sudden the whole table starts to come up off the ground and float under the power of the Ouija board, and that's something new that I've been doing. You can see that. Actually, you can see the if you'd like to see that, the video of that. There's video on my YouTube channel. You can see that online.
Well,
if you guys want to check it out, or everybody in the audience.
The Ouija boards are very dangerous. You know what happened with Ouija boards in 1870, don't you?
In 1870?
Yeah, you know what happened with Ouija boards in 1870?
I know. All I know is if you're talking to somebody called Captain Howdy, you're in trouble.
No, everybody who used a Ouija board in 1870 has died.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, they're dead.
Wow. They must be.
Yeah.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
I know. I've had a few people that have taken their Ouija boards out and burned them after some bad experiences with them. So I'm hip to the fact that that there are some very nefarious stories surrounding them, and some people that have had some really weird experiences after they've used them. So, and that's of course why I put it in the show.
They're bad. Because, my first marriage with my first wife, a former Miss Washington, actually, I married her. Biggest mistake I ever made in my life, next to my last marriage. But it was really bad. She was into, and that's probably also what got me into doing talk shows and the paranormal. It was because probably of my first wife. She went to a thrift store.
Really?
Yes, seriously, came home with a Ouija board. All her friends started coming over, right? And I would see, supposedly the table was supposed to be rising. I think everybody was kind of using their knees to help it go up because they were so excited about the Ouija board. Yeah. But we started having so much bad luck. I got mad and threw it in the garbage. And then, then all of a sudden she had it again. And finally I burned it, and then told all her friends where they could go. But I mean, it was so obsessive for a couple months with my wife at that time. I mean, almost every time I come home from work, her and a group of friends, the lights would be down. They had their candles, they have their symbols on the ground, whatever she was doing.
Wow.
And it was doing the Ouija board, and I don't know. Again, I've seen so many things in my life paranormal. I don't know what to believe or not to believe. But I mean, any information you get off a Ouija board, I certainly wouldn't want to trust it.
Well, and it's exactly those kind of experiences that people have had, and almost ubiquitously you hear stories like that. I was in the room once with friends who were playing with the Ouija board, and then the Ouija board, through their use of it, asked to talk to me. So I was like, no, I think I'll pass. So it's I've had that vicarious kind of experience. I mean, I was there and it asked to talk to me, but I didn't want to necessarily get into what that was all about, because I knew of the reputation of the Ouija boards. But it's precisely because of that, which is why I put that effect in the show, because I was fascinated with it, and again, it speaks to it's a theatrical representation of something paranormal.
Well, don't forget your audience, right? I mean, everybody out there in their mind, except if they're into witchcraft, and there's a lot of those, okay? A lot of witches.
Oh,
and
well,
warlocks.
there's a huge,
big following,
Wiccan pagan, community. Yeah.
But the average person who's not, they're still scared of the Ouija board. They're scared of it. I don't know about you, Michael, but I know that with my experience of it, I don't believe in it, because from the standpoint, they act like they're your friend or it's a relative, and then all of a sudden it starts going on the dark side really fast. And that's what I saw with my wife. She went from being a sweet kid to a total a basket case, just because she got into Ouija boards and then got into the occult and all that stuff, all because of the Ouija board.
Whoa. Wow, you're saying that the Ouija board was kind of the gateway into the occult paranormal world for her?
I think it was for her and her friends. Yeah. I mean, they believed in it so strong that it changed her whole life, and it really affected our marriage to the point it lasted 2.5 years, and then that was like living hell for 2.5 years, and then one day it was like, I can't take it anymore, and I was history.
Mm-hmm. Well, anything obsessive like that, no matter what it can be, but then certainly when you add that, occult and paranormal layer to it all, then I mean, that is going to be something that you have to sit down and go, do I want to, engage in this, and can I make this relationship work at this point or not? So, and clearly it wasn't working for you.
Well, too, back at that time, I was doing my first radio talk show up by Battleground, Washington. And at the time, there was a cult going around. There was like animals missing, and there were people missing on a regular basis. I mean, young people. And the sheriff department at that time was investigating it because of this occult. And, it was strange, I got the job, it was really, the whole thing is situated, it was scary, I got the job offer right after my wife started playing with the Ouija board. And, I go in for the interview, and I first thought, hey, I thought it was going to be top 40. And then they said, no, we want to do a talk show. Can you do a talk show? I go, yeah. And they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, anything. And they go, well, we want you to do a show like on, the cults and witchcraft and scary things. And I go, okay. And then, I did it. And then I started realizing, really weird. Here's my wife all of a sudden with her group of strange friends, playing with the Ouija board. Then all of a sudden I get my first radio job, and it ends up being a radio show doing the paranormal and talking to witches and all that stuff. It was really strange.
That's wild. Yeah. Now, because we talked about this, not last time, but I think that the first time I was on, your experience where you saw a Sasquatch, a Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
And had you already had that experience by the time you had got this job offer? The talk show, the paranormal talk show?
Oh, I got in radio back in 1976. That tells you how old I am. Okay. It was around 2002 that me and a friend who was a medical doctor, we went up to the Canadian Rockies, and that's where we had our encounter with something that was about 8 feet tall and maybe 400, 500, 600 pound range. I don't know. Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's what's fascinating to me, because I wondered if you already had that experience when you went into, the gig of doing, a paranormal radio talk show. But that came later. So that's really interesting. Yeah. But that whole scenario where she's, you're in a place and there's cults and there's people and animals vanishing, and then, and then she's playing with the Ouija board, your former wife and everything. That's wild.
Well, it was. It was real weird because, here, I come home, like I said, from work. Her and her friends are sitting there with a Ouija board. I just got, done doing my radio show. And I'm sitting here talking about witches and interviewing witches on the radio show, talking about whatever, it wasn't all paranormal. It was a mixture of everything. But it was mainly tied into the paranormal. And then I had to come home and, and deal with it. And it was really hard because I'll be honest with you, at that point, I really didn't believe in the paranormal at all. I mean, I honestly thought, I did have one weird experience back in Junior high school, we had a teacher, Mr. Bender. We hated him with a passion. Me and my friend Terry Morgan, we hated this teacher. And we went to the magic store because we sat and we were watching on, like a horror